Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Before we get into the show, I just want to let you know about our sponsor. It's a film called Sir John A. and the Curse of the Anti-Quenched. It's a fun comedy, stars John Dunsworth from Trailer Park Boys, Spenny from Kenny vs. Spenny, and the Diener from Fubar. It's about two brothers that save their city from demons by staying drunk. You can get it on Vimeo on demand right now, or you can check it out on Amazon Prime in the States. Check out cursetheantiquenched.com for more info.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Welcome to the Raiders of the Lost Commentary podcast.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
The unofficial commentary for your favorite
Get to the chopper!
and not so favorite films.
The famous comedian Arnold Braunschweiger.
Starring your hosts Adam and Matt.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Start your movie in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. This week on the podcast, we have another special guest. I'm joined by Peter Hatch. Peter Hatch is a producer, director, filmmaker, and he runs the YouTube channel Deformed Lunchbox. If you're not familiar with them, I highly suggest you head over to YouTube right now. Check out some of their short films. One of my favorites was Make Me a Sandwich. It was phenomenal. So today on the show, we have Peter. Peter, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on your show, Adam.
Yeah, of course. So we worked together a number of years ago on a short film with another guest of the show, actually, Travis Laidlaw.
It was Fist Plus Face,
Fist
right?
Plus Face, that's what it was. Yeah, and that was like a lot of fun, and I had a great time with everybody on set. And recently, Travis was like, "Oh, have you seen what Peter's been up to? He's been doing this YouTube channel, and like they're having some success." And I was like, "No." And then I went to YouTube and checked out a bunch of your stuff, and then I was like, "This is amazing." And then obviously just wanted to get in touch and chit chat about what you guys have been doing on the channel. So thought maybe just talk about like where you guys got the idea to start the channel and like just where it all began.
Well, the idea, I would say, kind of found us because I'd already made, like Travis, I was kind of just making short films, and they'd kind of all fallen into the same category of kind of horror, kind of weird, kind of strange comedies. So it just kind of, I guess I kind of looked back on the movies I'd been making, and I was like, wow, I should probably put this all somewhere. And it just kind of happened organically like that. There wasn't like an apex moment that it happened, you know?
That's always the way, eh? You just sort of stumble into some things sometimes. Yeah,
I had an older camera operator tell me a long time ago. He goes, you can't find your style has to find you. So he's like, just get out there and make stuff that you enjoy and you want to make, and do it through your intuition. And then like only after doing it for so long are you going to figure out like, no, like, this is the kind of thing I make. And I think now for me, I'm now starting to look even deeper in like, what kind of horror films am I making? What kind of movie am I making in this genre? So you even get deeper and deeper, you know?
Yeah, the genre within the genre, that sort of seems to be something that's happening a lot more recently. I don't know if it's recent or I'm just maybe discovering it now, but it does seem like it's like horror is maybe like the underlying theme, but then there's other themes going on within films, and I find myself more drawn towards those types of stories personally.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think in the last few years, the horror genre has exploded, and like you said, like these subgenres are now becoming like so popular. Like you could even say comedy horror is its own subgenre, or found footage is its own subgenre. And there's also, I'm sure you've seen some of these movies like from like Ari Aster and Robert Eggers.
I have not, but I should look that up after.
Yeah, like check out like Hereditary and
Oh,
Midsommar.
yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen that. Sorry.
Yeah, and like The Witch and Lighthouse, and it's like these more like art house horror films that are more like they do kind of scratch at those themes and those deeper themes, deeper connections. They're not just slashers. They're not really funny. So I don't know. I love the genre. I think there's tons to explore with it.
Definitely. So with like the channel itself, like how many films did you guys have made before you started releasing it on there? Did you find success like right away, or did it take a bit of time? Like what was sort of the spark that like you guys are like, oh, we're going to start like releasing a lot more content on YouTube?
Well, it's kind of it started off by making the film The Toothbrush one. I don't know if you've seen that. And it was just me and one friend, and I'm basically just brushing my teeth and then brushing them till they bleed and all the teeth fall out.
Ew.
So it's very, very macabre. But after that one, people, I mean, it didn't like blow up or anything. We just kind of threw it on a YouTube channel, called it something, which ended up being Deformed Lunchbox. And then people were kind of like, oh, we want to see more. We want to see more, like do more of these types of shorts. So we started to do a couple more every few months or so. And then I realized I had done all these films before, I mean, like well before, like 10 years ago even. And I was like, okay, well, let me recolor those and post those as well. And I think now we're at about 30 to 40 short films. And we have a couple things like we have a couple like fake, we do like these fake trailer edits where we'll put Jason against Batman or Michael Myers in X-Files. And like, we'll kind of do these kind of fan trailer things. Yeah, we've got about maybe 40 or 50 videos on YouTube and on other platforms as well.
That's awesome, man. And I think like just the format you're doing too, and just like, you know, a shorter film, like really short, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, part of like you being successful on YouTube, at least I've seen from the stuff I've worked on YouTube, you know, the shorter stuff works better. And then like you get into like a longer short film and it doesn't sometimes have a lot of success on YouTube, may have success elsewhere, like in festivals. People are like more likely to, you know, be open to the idea of like sitting through 9 minutes of a short film and get engaged in it. But like, it's hard to engage somebody on YouTube or like any type of social media platform. So I find like that format, like, I don't know, I think it works well. Is that a conscious decision you guys did, or you just that's the shorts you guys wanted to make?
I would say it started off just with budgetary concerns, right? It's like, I mean, I'm an editor first, so I'm always kind of the mindset of shorter is better in a weird way. Like, yeah. I mean, imagine even a movie like Batman versus Superman, which it's not a great movie, but if you took the best moments and made like a 10-minute movie out of it, it'd be awesome, you know?
Yeah. I think about 10 minutes of that are awesome.
Yeah, exactly. The trailer was awesome.
Yeah, it was. I got really excited.
But I just always figured, you know, if you had, let's say you have like, you know, $5,000 to make a movie, you can either have a $5,000 1 minute, like really jam-packed awesome minute, or you can spread that 5,000 over 10 minutes where every minute is like a little bit less. Yeah. So I think that was kind of always, that was like my original mindset. But now I've like you said, I've like really embraced this kind of, I call them micro shorts. Where they're like under 5 minutes, sometimes even under 1 minute, just like bite-sized, almost like I kind of like to call Deformed Lunchbox, like to say we're like Tales from the Crypt meets Robot Chicken.
Okay, I like that.
So yes, kind of like we're horror, but we've got this kind of comedy side, and we kind of focus on like these quick little stories, these quick moments. We don't get too deep into the longer short films.
Yeah. I dig that, man. I think that's awesome. You mentioned something just about budgetary constraints, and I will say some of the shorts do look like you guys spent a bit of money on them. I just wonder if you can talk a bit about like what goes into producing something like this. Like you guys start with like an idea, obviously, and then is it like wait till you guys have a bit of money, and then you're like, okay, we can go shoot this? Like, bring me through a bit of the production and pre-production.
Well, we always have like a ton of shorts written.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like right now we've got well over 50 of these kind of shorts. And I think the hard thing is writing them, and I'm sure, I mean, any indie filmmaker will attest to this. It's like you need to kind of write around what you know you can do. Like, you know, you can't just write in, you know, dinosaurs and space battles and things that unless you have the money to, or the plan to make those kind of effects. Yeah. So I mean, so in general, like, I mean, I'll even skimp it down even more from there. I'll think, okay, like, do we need to have on-screen dialogue, or can it have no dialogue? Because that'll save money on sound. Can we do it all in one location? Yeah. Can we do it with one or two actors? So I think that's kind of like this limiting factor is, I mean, I'm always someone who I like limitations when I write. It just kind of, I don't know. It's like a creative limitations like that, I find almost help bring out more creativity.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
I think, I don't know. It's hard. It's just, you know, if for example, like my apartment where I'm living now, like the last 3 or 4 short films have been shot here. So kind of when I sit at home, I just look around the room and I think, what can I do here, or which one of these short ideas that we have already can I adopt for this place? You know?
Yeah, no, I get that. I do that sometimes too, like traveling often enough, and I go in a lot of different locations, and I'm like, ooh, this is an interesting spot. I wonder if they would let me film here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to rent locations. I find, just that seems to be the biggest cost.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're
locations.
in like the Toronto area, and like people there are a lot more film savvy, and they know kind of like movies come in and pay money for stuff, and then us indie guys kind of get caught in that like, oh, we can't afford this. We can't afford Hollywood dollars, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's easy to say, hey man, we only need to like use your restaurant for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But the thing that they often don't realize is no, like, if you want to do it right, you need to haul in equipment, you need a space for makeup, you need a space for like holding talent, you need to bring all these gear. Like I'm sure it's like when you watch the movie, you don't realize that you need like all this extra space around the movie.
Yeah.
So I always think I'm always kind of like, it's not really always just about, it's easy to think, yeah, we just need one table at a restaurant. But really, you're going to need to close that restaurant down. You're going to need to do all these other things. So it's tough. Locations are like the biggest challenge I have with these shorts.
Yeah. I think locations in general are something that's a challenge. I know, like, personally, like, I've lucked out a lot with locations and just having, making relationships with people and friendships and kind of like just being friends with people. I've been able to like get into a lot of locations that probably I shouldn't have gotten into. And then also just being bold enough to go places without asking,
Yeah.
Which gets you so far. But yeah, just sometimes I always say like just asking and coming like hat in hand asking and seeing what happens. That's kind of like been my approach to a lot of things. But
absolutely, yeah.
But you guys have got some interesting locations, and I will say too, like the casting as well, like especially Make Me a Sandwich. Like you guys got some great actors in that short. I just wanted maybe if you could speak a bit about like what goes through a casting. Do you guys hold a normal casting? Are you paying actors? Are you just are these like friends you guys know, people you worked with before?
So we pay the actors. It's not a ton of money, but it's usually enough. I'll be transparent. The model we've been sticking to is paying them $150 per day plus $50 for travel expense. So they basically make $200 a day, and they get it on the day.
Okay.
And then the other kind of guarantee I give them is that, I mean, unless we're going for a festival run with the short, it's like I kind of guarantee them. I'm like, well, this movie will be done and released within a month.
That's a big thing, eh?
For a lot of actors, that's huge. Like they're so used to never seeing their movies.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely garnered a lot of trust from people, at least them knowing, like, hey, like maybe they don't make like a ton of money off this short, or maybe sometimes it's not like ideal all the time, filming times and wherever, but they know it. Like I finish everything that I shoot, and that'll be out. So like that, I think that's something. A lot of actors tell stories of this all the time, at least the ones I've worked with. They're like, yeah, I worked on this thing and then never saw it again. Or like, oh yeah, they're still editing. Or, oh, the guy accidentally deleted something, or just something, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I it's funny enough, I have a story. I was hired by a young film student to act in his movie like years ago. And I was playing the part of someone who had narcolepsy, so I kept falling asleep. And it required me to to take dives, basically. Like I would fall into the floor, I would fall into doors. We did a bunch of takes of my face falling into a bowl of cereal. And I actually thought it was really like funny, even though, maybe it's offensive to people who have narcolepsy. I don't know. But I got really into it and I took it very seriously. Yeah. And then it just never came out. And finally, I even messaged the director and I said, give me the footage. I'll edit the movie. I was like, I will do all your posts for free. Just let me release this movie that I'm in. And then he kind of got wishy-washy. And I think, like you said, they probably lost the hard drive and he just moved, he's film school. He's moving on to the next term, next project. And I think on that day I got so frustrated. I was like, well, I'll never do that to somebody. Yeah. I would almost, I don't remember how I said it to him. I said, man, I spent 2 days on your movie. Like, feel like he kind of wasted my time. So
Yeah.
hopefully he still has guilt about that to this day. But
Let's hope.
let's hope he loses sleep still to this day about it.
Yeah, quite opposite that. Yeah, like I definitely, well, not opposite, I guess, in that vein, like stuff that like remains unfinished, or just unreleased, or has just some sort of like edge on it, like that holds over me so much. And I don't have many things like this, but just like small little tiny things that I'm like, that'll haunt me to this day, like an
Yeah.
unreleased thing, or like something where I'm like, I didn't get that to the 100% like I wanted it to. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about stuff like that.
Oh yeah, like, so do you edit as well, Adam?
Oh yeah, I kind of consider myself one man band. Like sometimes I'm doing everything on set, like from camera operating, DPing, checking sound,
Yeah.
doing it all.
I mean, the one thing I will say, from editor to editor, is that there will almost always be something in a movie, at least for me, that I feel like I could have changed. And like I used to get really bothered by that. Like I'd be really bothered if a movie came out and it got released, and then there was something about it that I wished I had changed. And sometimes it's as simple as I wish I had taken 2 frames off that cut and just cut 2 frames sooner. And it'll bother me, and I used to watch the moment over and over again, like OCD. But I went to some like editor forums, and I talked about it, and a lot of the editors there are like, no, like it's just part of it. Like, don't lose sleep. Like, you got 95% of the way there. Like, that last 5% is so subjective. It's so internalized.
People don't notice it.
People don't notice it. And, now I'll watch like even big feature films, and I'll notice things in the movie that I was saying, oh, I wonder if the editor was bothered by that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They probably were.
Probably were, But so I just don't, I guess, I try not to lose too much sleep over that. Story, I think, is key.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. I find the other thing that's difficult is just changing hats for me. Like I go on set and I want all these shots, and then you might spend a ton of time setting up a shot and getting something and executing it and be like, yeah, we got it. But you get in the edit, you're like, it doesn't work. We have to get rid of it.
Oh yeah.
This other thing we spent 10 seconds on actually looks and works better.
Yeah.
And you have to be like, yeah, I guess we have to cut that shot or whatever, that scene, that thing we did,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of being a good editor, right? Is having the discipline to get rid of the shots took a long time, or being able to make those hard calls,
or even something that costs money. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about this. Just like, you guys have some great special effects in this, like practical special effects, and I find myself struggling, oh, I spent money on this. Should I leave it in the film even if it's to a detriment? But I'm like, you spent money on it, but it looks like you guys spent some money on some of these practical effects. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that and what goes into those.
The first thing I'll say to that effect is if there is something in the movie that cost money, like let's say it's a prop or a makeup or something, I will try to shoot that first, or at the very least, I will try to set a very generous time frame for it. For example, for Make Me a Sandwich, and spoiler, there's a skeleton in the movie. We did that scene first.
Oh,
so we
okay.
spent, the very first thing we shot was that. So we had, prepped the room, we had set it all up. We had spent, a long time on it, maybe 2 hours just to get every, sandwich with the right amount of mold, and, and then light it right and get the TV flickering. And it was a major shot. So we put a good 4 hours in our schedule for that one moment.
Yeah. And it's a great shot.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if you could talk just are you guys making your own props like that? Are you hiring out for that?
It depends. For Make Me a Sandwich, we had a production designer who kind of worked with me on the skeleton and setting that up, and she was great. And then on some of our more recent movies, I have a makeup artist come out. But it depends. I don't know if you saw the movie we did, Toast.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, all the effects in that were just kind of done by us. There was no makeup, there was no special effects team, there was not even an art department. And we just kind of makeshifted it. And I have a little portion of my apartment set up that I call my lab. And I'll kind of leading up to the week or 2 weeks before a short, like I'll kind of be like my area to, take apart toasters or figure out how to like make something and get it set up. Like even something like the last short we released called Sharpener, where she's opening a gift. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to wrap this gift? Like, how do we wrap it so she can open it to camera properly? And, we're practicing it and we're like finding where the seam is and we're rehearsing with her where the seam is. And, I'm a big believer that, if you're making a movie, you need to have something like special in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I always cringe a bit when something is just very dialogue heavy, especially for like a short film, especially a horror.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Just because, I mean, sure, it's could have the best dialogue in the world, but it's just nice to have something a little more extraordinary that you're showing people.
Yeah. The other thing too, I think about, like I've gone both ways. I've done dialogue heavy things that are comedy, and then one of my more recent shorts that's done like a few festival things has zero dialogue. And but like that's been able to screen like worldwide because of that, because there is no talking. Like audiences everywhere will understand what's going on,
Yeah, I mean that's something we try to do a lot, where we try to make a number of shorts that have no dialogue, just because I mean especially the horror genre is so popular worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
It's very popular in Asia and it's very popular in South America. Like we have a huge following in Brazil. So
oh really?
Yeah, so now we will translate we'll get closed captionings for every movie we do for a bunch of countries, and it's not super cheap, but it is nice to do something like our film Toast, where it had no dialogue, and it's just funny seeing like some Czechoslovakian YouTube channel like do a reaction to it. You have no idea what they're saying, but you're just like, wow, like it's just cool to know that. Something translates, to like such a different culture.
Yeah, no, I find that's like one of the more amazing things about making movies, is that you can put it out in the world and somebody far, far away watches it and like gets something out of it or reacts to it. I think like it's like the best feeling I get from making stuff. Totally.
And I think that's why like when we wrap on a shoot, I'm like super stoked to just edit it and show people. Like I just can't wait for people to get a reaction from it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I want to be in. My favorite thing is to be in that theater, and then like the lights go down, and then like it starts playing. Like I love that. I'm trying to like every time like something gets hard, I'm like think of that day when we're gonna get to show it.
Yeah, you know what though? Every time I've been to a film festival, I don't know why I get so incredibly nervous.
I get nervous too, but I usually drink a lot, so that like evens it out.
That helps. I know. I'm just worried. I'm just like worried something like the transfer went wrong. Do you know what I mean? And there'll be like one frame where there's like something off, and I'll just like my hands will sweat. Like I don't know.
I had this problem in Hamilton. I screened a short at the Hamilton Film Festival. I don't care. I'll put them on blast. They screwed up, but like it's theater's packed. Lights go down. Our short screens first, and then I'm like, oh, something's wrong. And then it's like zoomed in like 200%. I was like, oh, there's something wrong with the projector. We're like a handful of us are saying it out loud. And then some people are like telling us to but then one guy is like, oh, is that your short? I'm like, yeah. He's like, did you submit 4K? And then I was like, yeah. And then you heard like an audible groan from the other filmmakers that submitted 4K in the thing. They're like, no. And then they wouldn't fix it. They just screened the whole block of shorts.
Yeah, but that's like on the short. That's on the festival, man.
Yeah.
I won't call out the festival, but I something similar happened to me where I sent in like a DCP for projecting, and they like kind of cropped the edging a little bit instead of letterboxing it. And it was one of those festivals where like they had the service of saying, hey, we'll charge you $100 and do the DCP for you. So I did that, and they still screwed it up.
Oh no!
Luckily, it wasn't so far zoomed in that like no one noticed it. But for me, I was like, oh, that's not the original frame. Like we were a little wider. Like we lost some headroom on the actor. So,
yeah, that's
again,
tough.
It's frustrating, but I mean, I've also been to like the actual movie theaters and seen like a big. I think it was Aquaman that I saw, where like the first 10 minutes it just had no sound. And like people started walking out, and then like all of a sudden the sound just came on, and it was like, well, do I leave because I've the first 10 minutes had no sound? Like, are you gonna restart it? Like, so I don't know. It's
It definitely,
it's a thing.
it
It's a thing.
definitely happens, but it's like it's frustrating when it does happen to you. Like some of the people's shorts, it wasn't as bad, but the short we made, we shot it like 2:41, and so all the action things were happening in the corners of the screens,
Oh dang.
and so all you just saw was blank, just blank in the middle of the screen.
Dang. I mean, it's kind of a funny story though, right? In retrospect.
Now it is, yeah. But at the time, we were a little pissed.
Yeah.
But these things happen. The other thing, like with festivals, and like you know, you go to these different festivals, and some of them are great, and then some of them, it's like amateur hour with projection, or even just the sound. You're like, I paid like a good amount of money for this mix, and somehow you made it sound like shit. Like,
Yeah. Yes, I think it's just the speaker systems in some of those smaller theaters.
Yeah.
But I mean, festivals, it's weird. Festivals, we can talk about that for a second.
yeah, I wanted to get your take on. I have like mixed feelings about festivals.
I feel like the whole landscape for festivals has changed in the last, I mean, obviously in the last year over COVID, but even over the last like 4 or 5 years. I mean, there's a lot of great festivals, but I think a lot of them are scams.
Oh, 100%.
And I mean, I worked on a documentary a few years ago. We got into this kind of animal style film festival, and they basically, once we got in it, they extorted the producer and said, you need to buy advertising in our schedule, or we're going to pull your movie. And it was $500.
Jesus.
So yeah, and
That's extortion.
Yeah, it totally was. And there's other more not as egregious examples. I don't know if you use Film Freeway.
Definitely.
It's a great service, but I think they need to start cracking down on some of these festivals because a lot of them don't ever screen the movies.
No.
COVID or not, they have a website that they'll just kind of post in text what the winners are, and they're just raking in money. So I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on festivals right now, and you know, that's why with us, like, you know, I'm more likely to make a short film and just release it right away because for Make Me a Sandwich, like, we had a good festival run. Like, we even got in the Toronto After Dark Festival, which I was really stoked about.
That's amazing.
But it's funny, like, all the major opportunities that have come from the movie have been entirely from its online presence.
That's interesting.
Like it's being streamed on a few platforms, and it's being streamed to like Japanese airplanes or something. And those are all people who reached out to me through seeing it online.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I don't. So it's amazing, but it kind of just goes to show, like, does this world of, like, are you better off submitting to festivals? Or are you better off putting it online and just like maybe putting a little bit of a digital marketing effort into that short, which is a whole nother ball game of digital marketing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I sort of feel like similar. Like, I'm on the fence about stuff. Like, I had success with one short in a bunch of festivals. And, like, aside from, you know, some reviews and just people saying nice things, and we had, like, a short run on, like, this Bloody Disgusting sort of streaming thing.
Bloody Disgusting is great, though.
Yeah, that was probably, like, the biggest thing that came out of the whole thing that we were like, oh, sweet. But, like, after that, it was like, okay, well, like, we have all these laurels. And that's all we really have to show for it. Like, we didn't, like, none of the wins we got had any cash value or any prizes other than just winner, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still proud of it. I'm like, it's still great that we won against other stuff. And, like, you know, I was able to travel with it. You know, I was able to go to Florida because of the short and, like, screen it there and some other places. And that's been cool.
It's definitely fun. It's definitely a fun experience to go to the festival run for a movie. I definitely agree.
But, like, I'm trying to think of it, like, long term, like, with, like, a feature or something like that. Like, what do you get out of it? And, like, I don't know. I'm starting to, like, think, like, gotta, like, take matters into your own hands. And, like, festivals need to maybe be a little less strict on, like, oh, you can't have this released elsewhere. Like we're kind of doing them a favor of showcasing a film at their festival and putting butts in seats, and they're charging
and paying just to submit it. So even the movies that don't make it into the festival are paying.
Exactly. And then, like, some festivals are good about this, but others don't do this. Like, if you pack a theater in another town, like, they're all paying $20 a head or something to be in that theater. You don't, like, some festivals don't show you any of that money. And, like, you know, like, you filled a theater, like, to you know, to show off the film.
It's a weird thing because it's kind of like it's like a win-win in a way, because, you know, for the filmmaker, we're getting some sort of accreditation, we're getting to see it on a big screen, and, you know, we're still only having to pay $20-$30 to submit. and then the film festival gets all this free content to profit off of a festival.
Yeah.
So it's this weird win-win thing. And even now with some of these festivals that I consider scams that just are websites, it's still like, you know, I'll see movies that like stack their laurels. So it's like, it looks like they've had like 30 laurels because they've been in so many of these, you know, festivals. And the festival is happy because they get promotion from the filmmaker, and the filmmaker is happy because he's getting a laurel on his film. So it's kind of this weird, like, circular scam. I feel like that's
I guess. Like, and to be honest, like I'm guilty of reciprocating some of that scam, right? Just
same here
over the years. So
hey, we won at this festival, but if you look at the festival, it's only a website that is still an at Wix website.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean?
And then
Yeah.
so it's like, I guess that's not like the biggest win of all time, but like it's funny. Like a win in one festival is sometimes less amazing than just even an official selection in like a major festival. Like I feel like getting in Toronto After Dark, like that's like a pretty well-known, prestigious festival. Just the caliber of film that goes to that festival.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, oh, pay attention to this now because of
Totally.
that.
But you know, at the same time, I mean, you might relate to this too. There was a time in my life where I thought, you know, if you get into a festival and your movies, it's like there'll be scouters there, and those scouters will find you and they'll be like, hey, we want you to make a bigger movie. We want to give you money. And like, kind of like this illusion that film festivals would like pave the way to this much brighter future.
I think it used to be like that, but now I don't think it's like that at all.
I don't think it's like that at all anymore, especially with like YouTube and everything. Now it's more like, okay, it got into some festivals. It's a nice accolade on your spec sheet or on your pitch, or when you're talking, or on your bio, you can mention it, but it's still got to be you knocking on that door and saying, hey, this is why you should support my project, because I've been in these festivals. They're not going to find us, you know?
Or I've found it's just like people that have some of these success, like getting, you know, larger movies, like getting that offer. It's either they just lucked out at the right time, or they just knew somebody. Like, as we know in this business, a lot of it's just like who you know.
Yeah. And I don't doubt that, like, you know, for example, Ari Aster, who did Hereditary, like he did a short film called There's Something Wrong with the Johnsons, I think.
Okay.
It's a really good, like, it's a 30-minute short. But I don't know if that short paved the way for him getting the funding for Hereditary, but certainly by the time he got in that meeting, he had the script ready. You know, like that's the key. I think it's about having that project already in your pocket.
Yeah, fair enough.
More so than waiting for someone to say, hey man, you're a great director and filmmaker. Like, let me give you money to make something. Like, let me just write you this blank check. Now go create something.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be a little more of like, hey, we really liked your movie. And it's like, well, I have another movie I'd like to make. Do you want to talk about it? Here's the script.
Yeah. I think you got to have that like ready to go. Like you said, like have 50 shorts written and ready, or have like a handful of scripts, or just a pitch sheet ready for it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like in film, it's always like on to the next one. I don't know if you had that kind of feeling.
Oh yeah. Always.
It's like a never end. And now it's almost like it's treated just like content, right? So I think that's kind of been the big paradigm shift as well, where it's, you know, one magnificent short film is still just one short film. And, you know, we're living in an era where like people choose their streaming app based on like what collection of movies are on there. Like no one's just going to buy the singular movie anymore.
That's
unless you're
true. Yeah.
a big Blu-ray collector.
Right.
So we're almost like we're treating movies like it's like this widespread content versus like individual pieces of art.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what's sort of interesting about like specific streaming services like Shudder or something like that, right? Where they're just like, hey, we're just horror, and we're just this sort of lane of horror, and you come to here for this specifically, you know? Or like Bloody Disgusting's doing, you know, hey, you come to this streaming thing just for this specifically.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's where we're at right now, and I think that's why kind of focusing in on what we're doing with Deformed Lunchbox has helped, because it's like, no, we're not a short film channel. We're not just it's not Peter's YouTube channel. It's a channel where you go to watch short horror films.
Yeah.
And I mean, even so, and I've even kind of tried to make it more specific. Like, this is the channel you go to watch short horror films that might have a little bit of comedy. They're a little bit psychological. Like we don't do, too many things with witches and zombies. Like we try to separate even still from the genre. So I think the more specified people are these days, the better in a weird way. Like if someone's like, hey man, I just make movies about, birds and my channel is all bird movies and they're going to dub voices for birds and stuff, like all of a sudden it's kind of becomes its own quirky thing.
Yeah, no, then that's very, it's a very good point. If you guys made like a feature, say, would you consider just releasing it on your channel, or would you go more traditional route?
Well, my understanding is if I got the funding to make a feature, I would already need to have a distributor lined up.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd have the option. With that said, though, one of the things that we're trying to get off the ground is actually like an anthology feature or an anthology series.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it'd be kind of like what we're already doing, where it's like you're just going to get 10 micro shorts in a 22-minute episode.
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
That is something we're trying to do. We're trying to for a long time in my mind, I was like, oh, do a bunch of great shorts, and then that'll lead the way to a feature. And after so many years now, I'm just kind of the opinion. No, I love doing these micro shorts. I love the format. I think there's lots to explore with it. I think people have low attention spans and like the format.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, why don't we try to just make this a thing? And I think it'd just be really cool, being in Canada, we could bring on, guest directors, we could bring on guest writers, we could include tons of different actors, bring on different cinematographers. Like it'd be like a anthology of different Canadians working on this,
That's a great idea, man. And I think that is in and of itself a niche. And I think now that you guys have a bit of a platform, even just to promote it is really a neat thing. And I don't know. I think that's a great idea. I think it goes back to something you were saying earlier about what that, veteran camera operator told you. Like you find that kind of stuff along the way. Like it doesn't find you,
Yeah.
You would have never set out to make this, but now that you're here, it's kind of like everything seems so clear now,
Totally. Yeah. We're like before, when I was in film school, it was just like, hey, let's make a short film that'll scare people and mess with their heads.
Yeah.
And like now years and years later, you're like, well, I've done a bunch of those types of movies now.
Yeah. No, fair.
Let's try to turn it into something, and I'd love to get that kind of collaborative thing going where, we can almost kind of make a name for Canadian horror.
I agree. Like a lot of the stuff that gets funded in Canada, I spoke with somebody else about this, but like a lot of stuff that gets funded in Canada is, not representative of what the majority of Canadians watch,
Oh yeah, I agree.
Which is its own thing about like how funding gets, put out in the country and like all the other, red tape stuff with like Hollywood movies coming in and, taking some of the funding that way. But like the majority of Canadians watch genre pictures, and like that's what's purchased the most, but like it's the least funded by traditional means of funding through grants and things like that.
Well, I think the major difference is that in Canada, our movie funding comes from basically comes from our government, whether it's Telefilm or Ontario Media Arts Council. And I know even it used to be like Bravo Fact and Much Fact before they went away.
Yeah.
Would give grants for music videos and shorts, and that would turn into a tax credit for Bell.
Yeah.
It's kind of a scam, but
a little bit
kind of a scam. Shh, don't tell anybody, because But I've almost kind of like embracing horror, have almost a little bit given up on the Canadian system of grants.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. In the States
years ago.
Yeah, many years ago. But like in the States, like their funding doesn't come from their government. Right? It comes from these big studios. So I think on the positive side of that is nowadays with things like Shudder, with things like Netflix, and these streaming apps, now we've kind of opened a door for other options of content funding and creation where we don't. So, hopefully that materializes into something.
Yeah. You know what I see?
You're
too?
right. Yeah.
I see like for at least the indie lane, this is just my own personal opinion, and I base it on very little evidence, but I think the AVOD system is going to be something for indie filmmakers like a Tubi or like you're doing on YouTube. Like people are probably more likely to watch an indie film and take a chance instead of spending whatever $4.99, $99.99. They're more likely to watch it and watch an ad or two in between. You know what I mean?
Yep.
No cost to them. They take a chance on your short. You may not make as much on that, but like if you get decent advertising, splits and stuff like that, you maybe make, a buck or two, which is like with some of the movies I've done and like the back end deals that go on, you end up making $1 anyways off a sale.
Yeah, totally. I don't know though, because the way it kind of works now, I mean, even with Make Me a Sandwich, which is just a short film, and we've got like over 2.5 million views on YouTube, over 1 million on Facebook, and there's millions and more on the reaction channels. Like even still, like we've just barely broken even on it.
Yeah. Eh?
So none of the other shorts have made any money back. Like I can say Make Me a Sandwich is the only movie that only like now has made its money back.
Yeah.
So, and even still, I don't really think it has because I'm factoring that I worked on it for free. You know what I mean? And
right.
for free,
Yeah.
the hard drives and the festival submissions. So, I think maybe in the future that's possible, but I don't know. Like I know Vimeo, for example, like you can put a feature film on Vimeo and charge people a rental cost. And I had a documentary on there a while ago and it didn't make much money. I don't know. Like I agree that I think like I would rather go to the movie theaters and watch a few ads and pay less money, or have the middle break it into ads, or have, banner ads on the side of the movie to be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there is something that like if I, for example, on Shudder, I recently watched the movie The Dark and the Wicked. Have you seen this movie?
No, I haven't.
It's awesome. It's very scary. But I think there's some element where I see, okay, well, Shudder's promoting this movie like it's being curated. Where on YouTube there's so much stuff, right? Like there's just it's like there's so many horror shorts, and some of them are made by 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like nice sometimes to feel like, okay, well, at least there's this place where I can watch curated content where it's like it's the movie that has risen to the top.
That's a good point. Curated content though, that is very specific.
It is very specific, yeah. And I mean, there's the thought of making a horror movie and just putting it online, like a full feature. I mean, I had a friend do it, and without the budget and without the sound budget and without like some of those things we've come to expect in a feature film, it does become very hard to watch it after like 10 minutes.
Fair enough.
So it's hard. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, man. It changes every day.
It seems to, yeah. Speaking of sound, I wonder if you could talk a bit about like what goes on post-production wise with the shorts. Like obviously you talked about, you being an editor, but like it seems like, a decent amount of color correction and sound design goes into even just like the Make Me a Sandwich short. Like I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Totally. So I do the color myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And honestly, like I attribute Deformed Lunchbox as me getting better at color. Like it's been a great like learning tool for me because I'm not really a colorist by trade. Like now I feel like I am so much more experienced with color. So just as a side note, like to anyone listening who's making short films, like the experience is so valuable. Just like just doing it and learning is probably the biggest lesson you'll take away.
Yeah, no doubt.
But in terms of actual sound, it really depends like on the movie. If we have spoken dialogue, sometimes I'll know we have to hire a sound recordist with their own gear. Sometimes like for Make Me a Sandwich, we didn't because he's screaming, right? So if it's loud screams, it's easier to record on just like my H6N Zoom recorder.
Yeah.
And if the other thing is, when Marcy walks in the room, she keeps saying, "Oh, another sandwich." We did like 50 takes. So I kind of know when I schedule a movie, like, okay, we don't have a sound recordist. I know now that we'll need to do extra takes to compensate for perhaps bad audio.
Oh, okay.
Because if they say the line, "Can I make you another sandwich?" 50 times, like I know it's going to be in there one of those takes. Like, sure, sometimes it's going to scratch. Sometimes the PA who's operating the Zoom recorder is not going to let set the levels right. But I know if we do it enough times, we'll have it.
That's interesting.
And then we'll record wild lines as well. Like when we're done, we'll have the actors just kind of sit and read the script just to have that. So it's kind of like a juggle, right? There's other times where I know like, okay, we have a tighter schedule. We have actors where I don't want to have to like redo their take for sound. Like in a professional set, if you have two actors that are giving a great performance, you can't be like, oh, like that was a really great take, but we have to do it again because the audio recordist.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not how that works. So on some situations we'll hire an audio recordist to like make sure we have serene audio.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
That's on set. And then in post, usually the way I do it is I'll do like what I call like the sound design.
Yeah.
And I just do that right inside of like my editing, so like Premiere, where I'm editing.
Okay.
And then I have a mixer friend he's like a talented post-production mixer, and like I'll send him, an OMF file with all the channels, and he'll do kind of like an EQ mix where he's not necessarily going to go and add sound effects and redesign the sound, but he'll basically come on as like a mixer and basically make sure it's, because I don't have like a great speaker setup, and I'm not trained on audio. I'm
just a sweetening pass kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's all intuition. And the other thing I'll mention, and this might piss some music composers off, is that we don't ever go with music composers.
No?
No, I just got a giant library of stock music.
And you guys piece together that way?
Yeah, I mean, I use it's called artlist.io, and it's like royalty-free music into perpetuity forever. Like
nice.
You literally own you can't resell the song on its own, but I can resell the movie. And to be honest, like, it sounds bad, we don't even credit the musicians a lot of times because I have such a giant stock library, I don't even know who the musician is at that point.
No, that's fair.
I'm sure they made some money off my downloading of their song on Artlist, like whatever the deal is for them. But I always tell people, I go, watch out for hiring music composers. Not that they're not talented, but it's just on an indie budget. It's just one of those things where, okay, am I going to hire a musician for, let's say, $300? Like the lowest I could probably get a composer to do it.
If that, yeah.
If that, and it's got to be like a 3-minute movie. And then let's say they come back and it's like not what I envisioned. And then it's like, okay, like now we need to change it. Now there's more money. It's a conflict. And like, it's just such a weird thing to.
I see that apprehension for sure. I've had like just the opposite experience as you with composers, and I've worked with one like the last couple shorts I've made and the last feature I made, and like I just have like a great working relationship with them, and like almost everything I get back from them, I'm like, oh, this blew by my expectations, I
might need to get that contact from
you. I'll hook you up with it. Yeah.
Because I'd love to work with a composer. I guess I always just felt like we didn't have the budget. And
Travis had the same experience as me with her, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like holy shit."
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I take your word for it. I think I've had some less ideal experiences in the past, and I guess in my mind, to compose music should be, I don't know. It feels like it should cost more than I can afford. Like.
I will be honest. Like, I spend money on it. Like, it is something that's like a higher end that makes the budget a little more expensive. But I always feel like it's like after I get it back, I'm like, it elevates the film all the time. So I'm like, okay, money well spent. Like, and there is like often enough comments on it. One of the awards we won was for music. So
that's great. No, I think I will. I think I would love to get that content off you.
We'll talk after the show.
Sweet, man. Yeah, and even I've always wanted to do it where, I've never really had this opportunity where I ask a composer to send me, maybe 10 of their songs that haven't been used, and then I can just listen to those songs and kind of like feel an idea for one. I think that'd be a really cool, like almost like doing it like a music video but a short film.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Do you cut to music or do you bring in music after the fact?
Usually it's kind of during, like I'll kind of sound design as I edit. The funny thing is, if you listen to a lot of our shorts, the music in them, like there isn't really a lot of music. It's a lot of just kind of like tones.
Yeah. I'll find like your sound effects are very useful. Whatever you're doing there, like that's like punched up at least well in the mix. I think just like it's like there's a lot of just like grossness. There's a lot of like earthy grossness. At least in like Make Me a Sandwich or like the speed dating one, I think it's called, or like 5 minute dating.
5 minute dating.
Yeah, like that one. I'm like, ugh.
You know what? It's all about that ASMR.
Yeah, exactly.
The ASMR of chewing, it really gets people.
Yeah, that's a tag you guys probably have in your YouTube tagging.
Yeah, you know what? We should do that actually.
Views go up a lot.
I don't know.
after that.
I attribute some of that to James, just because, or the sound mixer I work with, because he did a really good job on making a sandwich with like just the chewing noises and the knitting. Like he actually did, like we didn't have any knitting noises, and he went into like his little booth and he took like knitting crochets out and he was like doing it to the like he really went above and beyond on it.
Oh
So
man, that's awesome.
he was sound, man. Can't be understated how important that is.
Definitely. So I have just a list of questions I ask all the guests, and I was
Okay.
going to run you through them as well. We often talk about like, you know, you get asked this question a lot, I'm sure. Like, you know, what advice would you give other filmmakers or new filmmakers? But I thought I'd turn that on its head a bit and ask, you know, what kind of advice would you have given your former self? Like if you go back in time, young Peter going into film school, what kind of advice would you give him?
I would have invested in. I would have sold my Blockbuster stock. Sorry, that was a joke.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I probably would have gotten on the social media, like gotten on YouTube a lot sooner, and just seen the value of building an audience and sharing content that way. I think back then I really saw it as like a second tier way to release content. Like I was very festival driven and getting on big shows and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think just taking, and I think that almost ties into the advice factor is it's never like, it's always good to start building that. In general, I find it doesn't really, it'll just build up. It won't really build down.
Yeah.
Like even if you go a year without releasing anything on your channel, like you'll still somehow get new subscribers.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think you touched on this earlier, it's just like, I think the future is going to be, you know, having your own audience online. So I often advice I'll tell people is like, get out there and start making content, start putting it out there and start growing your numbers.
Just one at a time, even like, you know, you
Yeah.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah. The other thing I probably would have told myself is to get out of music videos a lot sooner.
Really? Why?
Because I was big on music videos, like just I was directing music videos a lot, just out of film school, and I don't know, I just I put a lot of work into them, and part of it was a great learning experience, and really it taught me to edit and composite and start doing color and you know everything on the post side. It got me experience, but I just the advice was given to me actually. Someone said you need to get out of music videos, and the moment that I kind of did take that step, like everything in my life changed. It got better. It's just like there's just no money in music videos, and they're just so dime a dozen that no one really notices them that much anymore.
That's true. Yeah, it is hard to get noticed with them. I've done like the odd couple, and like I've enjoyed my experiences with them. I haven't done a ton of them, but I know what you mean. Like it's hard getting noticed with them, and you like put all this work into something. You're like, I made something fucking cool and weird, but like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm now of the opinion if you know, if you're one of those filmmakers who's going to put your all into a music video, you should almost treat it like a short film.
That's a good point.
And almost like not let it be a commercial for the artist. Like it's like, hey, if I'm going to make this video for free or for cheaper and you're going to get your music advertised, like let's at least let my vision have some impact on this and not just basically make a commercial for an artist.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
But yeah, but other than that, I feel like everything we do, mistake or otherwise, is always a learning experience, right? So I kind of like to look at like every mistake or every bad project I've gotten involved in. I at least like to think that it helped me get somewhere else, you know?
Yeah. No, totally. Well, speaking of that, the next question is, we talk a lot about like, you know, success, but if you're comfortable with it, I wonder if you could share a bit of like a failure story and maybe what you learned from it.
Failure story and what I learned from it. Well, very recently I have a failure story where a DP I know called me up and he said, hey, can you edit this music video? And I said, I don't know. Is it easy to work with artists? Like I told him I don't really do music videos anymore. Yeah. And he goes, it's a great artist, great director. So I talked to the director. Everything seemed great. It's a nightmare. And I had a little voice in my head saying, "Don't you know not to do music videos? You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this." And I did it, and now it's a nightmare. And the artist doesn't like the way they look in the video, and they're doing reshoots. And I have the DP calling me, telling about his feelings about the video. Like it's a freaking nightmare. So I should have listened to my little instinct. But I mean, I don't think that's the answer you're looking for. But in terms of doing my own project, I don't know. I feel like even a failure, or even like you make a movie and you're like, oh, it didn't turn out as good as I hoped. You still learn for the next one, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That inner voice thing that tells you don't. That's something, at least I know it took me a long time to listen to that voice. And like, I've definitely gone down the road of like working on something or doing a project or even a corporate project where things got deep and like, I was like, I can't turn back now kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it happens to all of us. And I think we're kind of trained in a way to always say yes.
Yeah. I know especially freelance, right? You're like, oh, I don't know where the next paycheck's coming from. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard because you'll say yes during a slow season, and then all of a sudden you're having to turn down other work, and it's tough. It's tough, but I mean, I think it's good for a while to have that always say yes mentality, like right out of film school. Just say yes to everything, because even if you're on a nightmare project, you're going to see how to change you're going to like kind of internalize how to do better.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I think there's a time you have to almost reach a point in your life as like an entrepreneurial filmmaker, like we are, where you have to learn to kind of start to say no, and it's very hard.
Yeah, I struggle with that still.
I mean, I would also say you can say no, or you can also just make the quote so high that it's worth the stress.
Yeah,
because either they're going to turn you down, or you're going to make some good money on it. So it's like, if it's real, like I really try to avoid stress in film. I don't like stress.
No.
I like on set when everyone's happy, everyone feels good, no one feels like they can't wait to go home. Like we should be happy to be filmmakers, you know? It's like such an awesome thing we get to do.
Exactly. You know? Magic wand. What was something you would change about the business?
The whole business, or my personal?
For business? You personally. For your experience with the film industry, Magic Wand, you could change anything.
That's a good question. I think in general, I wish that, I wish horror was more accepted. That's my answer, I think, because it seems to me like a lot of people they just hate it. It's like it's a love-hate thing, and I feel like it's kind of become this taboo. And I
think it's always been a taboo. It's always been in the taboo.
Yeah, it's always been. And I honestly think that is changing now with, like, you know, even shows like American Horror Story and movies like It's doing so incredibly well in the box office. Like, I think we are finally, like, now entering a time where we're taking this genre seriously. And it's like, you know, even like my parents they used to kind of treat it like it was a smuttier type of movie to make, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm making smut. I'm not making anything deep. It's like, oh, why aren't you doing a documentary on, you know, this amazing Olympian or something? It's like, well, I want to tell a story about people getting killed. You know?
Yeah. I find that with comedy a bit too. Like, people look down on it, but I'm like, you know how hard it is to make strangers laugh?
Totally. I mean, it's always easier said than done, I think, in film.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I think that's the major one. I mean, it's hard to say what else I would change about it. Maybe it's just, you know, I do still feels like a lot of shoots are very, I don't know. It feels a little, I mean, I'm trying not to say anything that'll sound bad, but it seems like on some shows, there seems to be a disproportional amount of money spent, where it's like, you know, I've been on commercials where, you know, the director makes $15,000 a day.
Yeah.
And that'll be like a 3-day commercial. And sure, like, they've earned it, whatever. But then you have, you know, a PA who's like busting their ass and making $250 or $200 a day and doing a 17-hour. And, you know, we know PAs, they don't get overtime until hour, I think, 18 kicks in.
Oh, wow.
So I guess if it was any major change, it would just be more like, more like socialist for film, like letting like the bottom players or the people getting into it and starting off on the bottom maybe can do a little bit better disproportionately to people making more. I don't know.
No, that's
I say that now and like, you know, maybe one day it'll change. Maybe one day I'll think differently.
Yeah, maybe, eh? I guess next, like, you spoke a bit about maybe wanting to do a horror anthology, you know, on the channel or elsewhere. But I guess, what do you want to do next, or what do you hope to do next, or what's on the
horizon?
On the horizon.
Well, I've got a short I'm shooting in 2 weeks from today.
Awesome.
So that one's kind of fast approaching. But I think with Deformed Lunchbox, the project, it's been the last year has been a ton of work. We've done tons of shorts. It's grown a lot. And I'm kind of at a point now where I'm feeling like I need to, I don't want to say I'm burning out a bit, but it's a lot of work. And I'm kind of like, well, let's do something bigger. So
that
I
YouTube
think,
grind is hard. I know from working on a few channels, like, that's a hell of a grind on YouTube.
And it's not just YouTube, you know, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's Vimeo. We have a TikTok.
Oh, it's the new shit.
It's trying to do all these things. And then at the same time, like you're also trying to like make the movies and plan the next movie and try to like level up to the next big thing. And, you know, trying to like get a website started and all these other things. And it's like doing it with like basically no investment or no money.
Or
there's
team, I guess, behind you. Like, it's just you guys doing this, like just a handful of you, or?
I mean, I have like a team, I would say, but it's very much like, you know, I have a friend on the team. He's a cinematographer and he'll shoot a lot of the movies. But when it comes to, you know, sitting and grinding on YouTube, it's not in his wheelhouse.
Right.
So that's, I find like it's one thing to be like, hey, we're a team that makes movies. We have a lot of fun on set every couple weeks. But then it's like, well, the actual other side of this kind of venture, which is the distribution and the networking and like the building an audience, like that's just not really what a lot of filmmakers want to do. So it's kind of something that I've taken on, and I think I like it now that we have an audience. And it's like, wow, I've seen that doing that side of it lets these movies get seen and get appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like just burning me out hard. And, you know, I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, no, I think we need to start doing something like a different model. And like I was saying, like getting like a larger format project off the ground, like an anthology or a web series or a feature length project, something's big. Like I think I'm ready to level up, you know.
That's what it'll be called, the level up.
The level up. Yeah. And I think the nice thing about doing an anthology is that it'll allow us to have all this content to keep releasing on the channel. Yeah. So it kind of, you know, well, like my goal is to get this, 100 short series in production. And then we can use these individual shorts to post on the channels, the online channels, to promote the show. Okay. So I'm hoping this thing I'm visioning will actually happen. And, so that's kind of like my goal plan. That's awesome, man. Get these out there to more people.
That's awesome, man. So for those listening, where can they find you? Where can they find Deformed Lunchbox or all the other things you do?
Well, you can literally just Google Deformed Lunchbox. So that should find you the YouTube and the Facebook and all the Instagram and everything. We're out there. Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I have a corporate video company. I don't think that's very interesting. You want to watch internal medical videos?
Yeah, that's sweet.
Not as interesting. But definitely. The thing I will say, if you're listening, check out Deformed Lunchbox and leave us a comment, because I try to respond to lots of comments. If you have questions, I try to give feedback. And if you send us a DM or a private message or an email, we will respond. We love to talk to the audience. You know what I mean? We love to know what you think. And the other thing I'll mention is that reaction channels have been a huge, huge asset to our channel. Just seeing other channels react to our short films.
Yeah, that's interesting, eh?
Yeah, and it's a kind of a new, somewhat new YouTube channel style where people will make these reaction channels and just react to horror short films. And not only has it been good feedback to see, how are people engaging with our content, but it's also grown our audience a lot. So I mean, some of our reaction videos have more views than our entire channel has.
That's great, man.
So I'll tell everybody, if you want to react to our video, we totally encourage it. We totally encourage you to watch our movie, record your reaction, show us your reaction. Like, we love that stuff. So
Yeah.
please engage with us. Yeah, we love it.
Man, that's awesome. Well, Pete, I thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show. I love learning just about people's methods, their philosophy behind making stuff, and I love just talking to people that make stuff. And better yet, I love like just the idea, like, you know, we worked together years ago, and you know, I consider myself pretty young in the business back then, and I'm sure you did too. And it's just cool seeing people progress, get better, make stuff, and like make stuff that like I personally really dig. It's awesome seeing people graduate to that. So again,
Totally.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey man, the pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me. Like that's like, it's been an honor. Like, thank you very much. It's been a fun chat.
Awesome. So yeah, check out Deformed Lunchbox. Check out their shorts. I would highly recommend starting with Make Me a Sandwich and then going from there. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll be back soon with another podcast.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at Lost Commentary, on Instagram at Raiders of the Lost Commentary, and like us on Facebook.
I'll be back.